Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this first installment of JCK's Holiday Survivor Guide webinar series. To help your store get ready today, we're going to be talking about getting the most green this holiday season. Before I introduce you to our speaker, I would like to quickly go through a couple housekeeping items. First, everyone on the webinar today is on mute. If you have any technical questions or questions for the speaker throughout the presentation, please type them into the question box to the right of your screen. All speaker-related questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. Second, if you are listening through voice over IP and are having difficulty hearing, please use the phone feature and call into the number on your screen. Now I'd like you to introduce you to today's speaker, Brad Huisken. Brad has been in sales since the early 70s. He's the author of the highly acclaimed book, I'm a Salesman, Not a Ph.D., and his new book, Munchies For Salespeople, Sales Tips You Can Sink into Your Teeth Into. Brad has also developed a number of sales training programs like PMSA Relationship Selling Program, the Train the Sales Trainer course, the Mystery Shoppers Kit, and other programs for new hires and existing professionals. He also has a new weekly sales training CD series. For more than 15 years, he has been doing sales and management seminars all over North America, Australia, and India. His company, IAS Training, started in 1996 and delivers public and private seminars and in-house consulting on both sales and sales management. In addition, his company sells books, CDs, audio tapes, DVDs, and videotapes on the subject. Brad uses practical methods, realistic strategies, and usable techniques to help increase sales through providing exceptional customer service. We're excited to hear some of these strategies today. We hope you find this webinar motivational, practical, and fun. Now, before I turn it over to Brad, we would like to take a moment for you to answer a few polling questions. Please take 30 seconds to answer this first question. Thank you. And the answer to that question, 40% of you said 7 days and 60% said 30 days. And now on to the next question before we begin the webinar. Thank you. And for the answers for the second one, what do you think the holiday selling season will be like? 54% said better than 2010, 8% said worse than 2010, and 38% said the same as 2010. And now I'll turn it over to Brad.
Well, hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to the first of JCK's webinar series, Getting the Most for Christmas. It's a real pleasure to be with you. Today we're going to talk about some things that we can do to increase our sales and to guarantee that this year's sales are better than last year's sales. And I really think that it might be a short selling season like it was last year. I mean, I think the really got busy starting on 12/17 and got busy all the way through 12/24. And I don't see any indicators where it's going to be any different this year. I mean, I've already seen CNN and some of the news networks advertising to customers that they should wait until the last minute because retailers are going to be getting desperate and taking deep discounts. So let's look at some things that we can do. And I think the first thing we need to do is talk about my sales philosophy a little bit. I think that contrary to popular belief that every time a customer walks in, the real goal isn't necessarily to make a sale. I think the goal is more to make a friend or to make personal trade, repeat business, and referral business. And I really think that people want to buy from their friends, and I think if we can make a friend along the way, then that's going to help us guarantee that we're going to make a sale, especially at Christmas time when we have more new customers coming in than any other time of the year into our jewelry store. We need to look at developing friendships and capturing name, address, telephone number, and probably most importantly, permission for follow-up for future events and occasions. If you think about it, at Christmas time, that's probably the ideal time to start selling some Valentine's Day gifts if we've done the right things and captured their name, address, phone, and permission for follow-up. So let's just look at a couple of these things. What is a personal trade customer? I think a personal trade customer is somebody that comes in and asks for you specifically by name. And I know if somebody comes in and asks for you by name, it's certainly going to be a much easier sale than somebody coming in fresh off the street that's never known you before or have never dealt with you before. And I really think what the world doesn't need is more pushing aggressive salespeople. What we need is more pushing aggressive customers. Unfortunately, we can't get our customers to listen in on webinars like this, so sometimes we just have to talk about how we can be nice and how we can develop friendships I think that in jewelry in particular, one of the keys to that is focusing on the emotional reason behind the purchase. I'm sure you'll agree with me that 99% of all purchases made in a jewelry store are based on some emotional reason why that customer is buying. A repeat customer is not quite personal trade yet, but they're certainly on their way, and they know your store and they know the organization, but they don't necessarily know you as an individual. So we've got to take that repeat customer and turn them into a actual personal trade customer. And how do we do that? Again, focusing on the emotional reason why they're buying, listening, and I think listening is probably one of the key elements for salespeople, because customers will tell you everything you need to know in order to make the sale, develop a relationship, and potentially add on and bump up the sale. And a referral customer is a huge untapped resource in the majority of stores that I go into, in the fact that we're not proactively asking for referrals and recommendations. I just think, especially at the holidays, we should be asking every customer who else do you know that may be interested in fine jewelry as a holiday gift this year. And they may be able to start off a couple of people or think of a couple of people. And then I'd say, well, let me give you a couple of my cards, and I'd love to meet them as well. Have them come in and see me, and we'll be sure to take care of them. So on the next slide, I talked about the three different types of customers that come in. And those are gonna buys, not gonna buys, and on the edge. The gonna buy customers, that's the hunter. I am a hunter. I'm gonna go seek, shoot, hunt, kill, take it home. I'm not gonna look around. I'm just gonna go into a jewelry store and I'm gonna buy it. So what do we need to do with the gonna buy customers? And I'm sure you'll all agree that we have a certain percentage of those things. And that is, number one, take the money. And what I mean by that is don't talk them out of the purchase. Don't confuse them. Don't start talking in our industry jargon, causing people to get confused and just go away. Just take the money. The second thing we need to do is bump them up and sell them higher quality goods. And I know for a fact that if she has something that she's proud of, that she wears all the time, that she's showing off to all her friends, then that's going to cause some referrals and recommendations, more so than something that maybe she doesn't like so much and she doesn't wear all the time, that just sits in her jewelry box most of the time. So when you look at men, when men are buying jewelry, what are they thinking? Probably show me something inexpensive. When women are anticipating getting jewelry, what are they thinking? Give me big, give me beautiful. So we have to convince him that he should purchase the bigger, more beautiful item, and that's increasing perception of value and bumping up the sale. And the third thing we need to do is add on, add on, add on. And this is especially true at Christmas, that we need to proactively sell add-ons, and we're going to talk about that a lot later on in the webinar. Now you have the customer that's not going to buy. And I think that's a very small percentage of people, because I don't think the people going to retail stores unless they have some want, need, or desire for the merchandise. And if, in fact, they're in the jewelry store, then they probably have some type of a want, need, or desire for the merchandise. And just because they said they're just looking doesn't necessarily mean they're just looking. It just might mean that they're looking for a salesperson to actually convince them to buy something. So don't think of it as the customer's not going to buy. But on the other hand, I'll make a bold statement, and that is when a customer comes into a jewelry store today, I don't think they're looking for jewelry. I think they're looking for a place and a person from whom to buy the jewelry. The industry has gotten so competitive that the only thing that separates one jewelry store from another jewelry store in many cases is the people that are working in that store. So again, when a customer comes into the jewelry store, I think it is essential that you sell yourself and you sell your company 3 or 4 or 5 times during the sales presentation. Then the customer that's on the edge, and this makes up the greatest majority of customers coming into the stores today. And I think 2 things need to be established in their mind before they're going to make a buying decision, and those 2 things are trust and value. Trust and value. Now, how do we get a customer to trust us? I think maintaining eye contact, never interrupting the customer, great listening skills, asking the right questions, and going back and selling yourself and selling the store is how we establish trust in the customer's mind. Well, then the question is, what is value? And I think value is just simply perception. And everybody has different perceptions of value. And, for example, you have a man coming in, he wants to look at a pair of diamond stud earrings. Well, what size are you going to pull out of the case and show him? If you pull out the biggest ones, you might be making a mistake and intimidating him by showing him something too big. On the other hand, you might offend him by showing him something too small. And the real answer is we don't have enough information yet to pull out any merchandise and start showing it to them because we don't know what their perception of value is. So I might ask him, tell me about your other jewelry purchases, or what have you purchased for in the past? And one guy says, well, we got engaged about 1.5 years ago, and for an engagement ring, I couldn't get her the diamond of her dreams. She actually wanted a 5-carat D flawless, and all I could afford was a 3.5-carat D flawless. Well, now what size are you going to pull out of the case? Probably the biggest, baddest ones that you have. On the other hand, you say to the customer, what have you bought her in the past? And he says, well, her engagement ring, I think this jewelry sales guy told me when I bought it, it was a big diamond. It was almost a whole third of a carat. And as you see, there's different perceptions of value. So if the customer thinks big diamond's a third of a carat, we show them 1/2 carat total weights, that might be about as high as they can go. So let's focus on determining their perception of value through asking good quality add-on questions. Now the next slide is what I call the circle of the sale. And the goal of the entire circle of the sale process is to get customers to say 3 magic words. And those words are, I'll take it. And then this is my definition of what a true sales professional is. And that's one that causes the exchange of ownership of a product or service based on the customer's wants and needs with integrity. Those 4 highlighted words are especially important because I believe single-handedly a salesperson can cause the success or failure of a store. I think single-handedly a salesperson will cause the success or failure of the Christmas season. And what do I mean by that? Well, if a customer comes in, asks you where your watches are, and you just simply point that they're over in that showcase, well, that's not really doing a very good job of selling that customer. So you will cause those things to happen. You'll cause your customers to add on. You'll cause your customers to think of you as a friend and all those things. Selling based on their wants and needs. I don't know where we lost sight of this in many retail stores, but it's amazing to me where people are selling based on the reasons they want to sell, not necessarily the reasons the customers want to buy. I was recently looking for some shoes, told the sales guy that I was on my feet all day, every day, need something very comfortable. They came back and said, well, I just want to let you know these are leather and you can keep them polished and looking nice. And I thought, what does that have to do with being, what I said is that I need comfort. And above all, do it with integrity. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't be deceptive, and all those types of things. Now, on the next slide, I talk about effective clienteling. And I think this holiday season especially, we need to do a great job of using the telephone in order to increase our sales. Now, there's 2 problems with the telephone. Problem number 1 is salespeople generally don't want to make the call. Problem number 2 would be customers don't want to get the call. So how would you guess we get around that seemingly unsurmountable problem? And the answer is on the next slide, is that we just start today, tomorrow, next week, getting customers to ask us to call them. Get your customers to ask you to call them. And if we start saying today, tomorrow, next week to all of our customers, we're going to have the majority of our holiday goods in the next couple of weeks, certainly by mid-November. Why don't I give you a call in a couple of weeks when the majority of the merchandise is in so that I can devote the time that you deserve and we'll have the best selection in the store at that time. And on the next slide, I talked about effective clienteling. The secret to that is calling the customers and telling them the benefits of having you call them. So it not only works at Christmas time, but it works all throughout the year as well, is that we need to start an effective clienteling process where we get the customers to ask us to call them. So at Christmas time, we might be saying to our customers, I tell you what, so that we can take a look at some coordinating pieces for Valentine's Day, why don't I jot down some information, call you the week before Valentine's Day so you can come in and pick up that perfect piece. And many customers will say yes. But if we're just calling our customers randomly without purpose behind the call, then I think that's where we aggravate customers, and that's where they think that we've started this telemarketing process, and it may do us more damage than it does us good. So remember, we've got to get the customers asking us to call them. And this is especially true with men because men just have a difficult time trying to select gift purchases. And if I can just call the guy and say, your wife was in here a couple of weeks ago, she saw these earrings she just loved. As a matter of fact, she filled out one of our wish lists, and she brought home a little hint card. Did you see that hint card? Now, where might that guy be, to buy the gift for the wife? Probably right back at your store. So we need to look at all those things, and the goal every time you make a telephone call on the next slide is to actually make an appointment for an in-store visit. I think very rarely will we sell something over the telephone, and I certainly don't think we have time this Christmas season to start sending out a bunch of stuff. But the goal is to make an appointment for an in-house visit. So when calling somebody on the next slide, it says you'd better have something important to say. And I think you have 7 to 12 seconds to say 3 very important things. Who you are, why you're calling, and what's in it for them. Now, the what's in it for them is the reason they had asked you to call them. And again, we've got to train ourselves to present or to capture name, address, telephone number in a way that's causing our customers to give us permission to actually call them. Now, in the next slide, I talk about the circle of the sale. And we certainly don't have time to talk about all 4 phases of the circle of the sale, but we do have time to touch on a few of them. So if you flip to the next slide, we talk about the 4 phases of the circle of the sale. Those are initial contact, well, when you initially greet the customer, the needs assessment, which is singly the most important phase of the entire selling process, the demonstration, where we're actually showing merchandise, and then closing the sale and adding on. And why do I call it a circle? Because I believe that we as salespeople have to be chameleons, and we have to adjust our presentation to fit the needs of the customer. We certainly can't take it in a step-by-step process where we greet a customer with a nice, warm, friendly greeting, then we schmooze them a little bit to find out their wants, needs, hopes, dreams, and aspirations. Then we ask some questions, then we demonstrate the merchandise, then we close the sale, which would sound great if we were sitting in a seminar room, but then life hits us. The customer comes in, especially at Christmas time. They're in a hurry. They need to pick up their kids, or they have a PTA meeting, or they're just on their lunch hour, and they walk right up to the showcase, and they say, oh, my gosh, can I see that? That is gorgeous. Well, we certainly want to approach them or greet them at that point. I'd want to get to business. And that would be saying, absolutely, let me pull it out, let me show it to you. So we'd start that presentation in the demonstration. In another case, we may have a lady come in that says, my sister was here a couple weeks ago and got a gorgeous pair of earrings, and trust and value have already been established in that case, so I'd want to close the sale. And I'd just say, would you like a pair just like them? In all likelihood, she might say, no, I want mine bigger. So we've already closed the sale, but we're well on our way into completing that entire presentation. And just because we closed it doesn't mean we can violate any of the circle of the sale, because we still have to establish some type of relationship, we still have to sell additional items, and we have to plant seeds for future purchases. So I would just say in initial contact, especially at Christmas time, just greet customers with a nice, warm, friendly greeting, just as you'd greet a friend of yours coming over your house. I know if a friend of yours came over your house, knocked on your front door, you wouldn't say those magic words, can I help you? And I also know that if a friend of yours came over your house, knocked on your front door, you wouldn't think to yourself, well, I don't want it to be too pushy and aggressive. I'll just let them walk around the house a little bit before I say anything. So let's not do that with our business friends either. Let's just greet them with a nice, warm, friendly greeting. And I'm of the belief that no matter what we say to customers when we greet them, that a very large percentage of them today are still going to say, I'm just looking. And I think that I'm just looking is nothing more than a programmed response in many customers' minds. And the easiest way to handle the I'm just looking customer would be to give them the verbal map. And if I say here at ABC Jewelers, we always welcome lookers, let me tell you where you can find things in our store. Over here is this, and over here is this, and over here is this. As they're giving them a verbal map, I think they'll start heading in the direction of what they actually came in for, or they might come clean with us and actually tell us specifically what they were looking for. So that's it on the initial contact, all I want to cover right now. But if you turn the slide to the needs assessment, I talk about the 4 goals of the needs assessment. And that is to find out what your customer wants, why they want it, to discover any potential add-on items they'll need, and 4th is to continue building trust. I think the most important of those 4 would come in number 2, and that is discovering why they need it. And many of you are thinking, well, that should be actually number 4 because trust is essential in a jewelry store. And yes, I'm kind of splitting hairs a little bit between number 2 and number 4, but I think that in the jewelry industry in particular, that every purchase is based on an emotional reason why. And if we can focus on the emotional reason why, and we can dwell on that a little bit. In other words, what's the special occasion? That's our 25th wedding anniversary. Wow, 25 years, congratulations. How are you guys celebrating? Well, actually, we're leaving for a Caribbean cruise on Friday night. We're going to go cruise the islands. And I say, oh, what islands are you going to? What cruise line are you going to be on? I think that's where the friendships are developed, and focusing and having a meaningful non-business conversation based on the emotional reason why, and that's where friendships are developed. I think that's also where trust is developed. So keep in mind those 4 goals, and then on the next slide I talk about my NADA theory, which stands for needs assessment equals answers, so demonstrate the answers. Again, it says the NADA theory, which is needs assessment equals answers, demonstrate those answers. And I think this is the secret to increasing your sales. And I think this will actually speed up the entire selling process during the holiday season, because way too often we end up demonstrating merchandise that the customer has no intention of buying. So we need to ask enough questions to find out what it is they want, why they want it, and just give it to them. And people buy things for all kinds of different reasons. When I first got involved with jewelry years and years and years ago, I started asking people why people buy diamonds. And I was getting answers like love, commitment, adornment, prestige, status, get out of the doghouse. One guy said because he's supposed to. And if he needs to buy a diamond because he's supposed to, is that a good enough reason to sell it to him? Well, I believe that it is. And then I thought, well, how do we sell them? And too often we think we have to tell them all the 4 C's and give them a complete diamond presentation. And in many cases, that's just not the case. So I think we need to ask enough questions to find out what's important to them in selecting a diamond, and then focus on that reason why, and that will help us to increase our sales and to speed up the selling process. Now, on the next slide, I talk about the open-ended questions. And open-ended questions are those that start with who, what, where, when, why, how, and tell me. These are questions that cannot be answered with a simple yes or no. They have to give you more information. And what's amazing to me is all of us in our personal lives, when we're dealing with people that we love and we care about, we are just full of open-ended questions. Who, what, why, where, when, how, and tell me. Put us in a retail store for some reason, and we start asking a bunch of closed-ended questions, which are is, has, does, will, and are. And I think communication has got so sensitive here in the last few years that we need to do everything we can to get our customers to open up and talk to us. And one of the keys to doing that is through asking good quality add-on or open-ended questions. And if I say, is this for a Christmas gift or is it for a birthday or an anniversary or something, I may get a really short, curt answer back, and they may come back and say, no, it's for Christmas. And if I just say, well, what special events do you have coming up, I may get an answer that we have Christmas and her birthday is on the 28th of December. Well, there you see we have 2 items that we can sell potentially and 2 different occasions. So we need to ask good quality, open-ended questions in order to get our customers to open up and communicate with us. Now, I believe there's 4 kinds of open-ended questions that are detailed on the next slide, and that is information questions, which are kind of get in their shoes questions, find out a little bit of information about them. Then what I call essential questions, and there's 7 of those that I think are essential, that we ask those in 99.99% of all sales presentations. Then we have the business questions, which are more directly related to the merchandise, what size, what's the shape, what color, what length, what width, those types of questions. Then we have add-on questions that are designed to find out what the appropriate add-on is going to be later. And I have the belief that we start the process of adding on early in the sales presentation, not later. Because if we start adding on later in the presentation, then we're perceived as being very pushy and aggressive. And I don't want to be perceived as being pushy and aggressive, but I certainly do want to be effective. So if you think about it, if you turn to the next slide, here are your 7 essential questions. And there's more than one reason behind asking these questions, and that's why I think they're so gosh darn important. And the first of the 7 essential questions is who recommended our store? If you could flip the slide again to the next one, which is who recommended our store? Now, why is that question so important? Because it implies that we get lots of recommendations. And as you all know, trust is an issue in this industry. And if we just ask the customer who recommended our store without even getting an answer back, we've increased perception of value and perception of trust in the fact that we get lots of recommendations. And I haven't seen the slide move yet. Can you please move to the next slide? So who recommended our store? Again, if they were recommended by somebody, I would certainly want to thank the person doing the recommending. Additionally, if we ask who recommended our store, and then later on in the presentation, we ask them for a recommendation or referral, we're more likely to get one at that point. Now, who you're shopping for, that's kind of a given as far as why that question is so important, but you need a gender and a relationship. And I know I'll spend more on my wife, daughter, daughter-in-laws than I would think to spend on my sister's, son's, girlfriend's graduation gift. So we need a gender and a relationship to see what level or what perception of value this customer may have, or how important that person actually is to that customer. Now, what brings you in today? That is the transition question between non-business and business. Or that's how we get to business. After we've greeted the customer with a nice, warm, friendly greeting, they said, well, I'm just looking. Then we give them a verbal map. And then I'm going to say, so what brings you in today? That just causes them to tell us, or they may come back and say, well, I'm just looking. If that's the case, then I would certainly let them look. Question number 4 is, what have you seen before that he or she would really like? Or what have you seen before that he or she would love to have? And that question is designed to find out what you're up against from a competitive standpoint. And I just think that we need all the information we can possibly gather. And if they say that this is the first place I've shopped, well, then that would be a different way that we'd want to sell ourselves and sell the store than somebody that says I've been doing some research on the internet. So if you find out what you're up against from a competitive standpoint, then that allows you to zero in on specifically how you need to sell yourself and sell the store and what other information you need to give them. And I think great salespeople have the ability to listen between the lines to actually hear what the customer's saying. For example, if a customer says, I was over at Macy's or one of the department stores, I saw a necklace that my wife might love, and then they're in your store because they didn't buy it at the department store, why would you guess customers go to the department store first? I think the single most predominant reason that people go to the department stores first is because they have the credit card. So we're listening between the lines, and we hear that they're at the department store. At some point in the presentation, we may need to tell them that we have finance options as well, or that we take credit cards. So just ask that question, what have you seen before, and you'll know what you're up against from a competitive standpoint. Question number 5 is, what's the special occasion? And of course, if they're shopping for a Christmas gift and they tell you you're looking for a Christmas gift, then you don't have to ask what the special occasion is. But every other time during the year, I think we need to find out what the special occasion is. And that, again, is where we can have our meaningful non-business conversation, where we can develop trust with the customer, and really focus in on the emotional reason why they're buying. Now, number 6 is the single most important question in sales. And if we can just get that happening in our store, get every salesperson asking every customer what's important to them in selecting a watch, what's important to them in selecting a diamond, what's important to them in selecting a gift, customers will give you one of 2 answers or everything in between. They may say, I don't know. And then that customer is telling you that's why they're there. They need your knowledge and their expertise. If I say to one diamond customer, what's important to you in selecting a diamond, and they come back and say, well, I want to make sure it matches Tchaikovsky's proportions, then I know I may need to give them a more technical presentation. That's what I mean, from one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum. One customer may not know, the other customer may know lots of information. One we need to give a technical presentation, one I might give more an emotional presentation. But if I say to a customer what's important to you in selecting a watch, and she comes back and says, well, they can't see well anymore, and I heard that some watches actually have a magnifying crystal, and then what are we going to sell that based on? Certainly not a screw-down crown or a sapphire crystal, but we'd want to sell it based on the magnifying crystal. So again, this is the secret to increasing your sales and selling quicker, is to find out exactly what it is they want, why they want it, and simply give it to them. And the 7th of the key questions is, when is the event or when is the occasion? And that is designed to put urgency to the situation. And at Christmas time, again, if they're shopping for a Christmas gift, you don't need to ask when it is, because it's usually probably the 25th of December every year. So again, you look stupid if you're asking, looking for a Christmas gift, when is that? But you might ask, what other special events you have coming up, when's your birthday, when's your anniversary, those types of questions, which on the next slide is beginning to talk about what I call add-on questions. And add-on questions are questions that we ask early in the sales presentation to find out what the appropriate add-on is going to be for me to actually introduce an add-on later in the presentation that's going to be appropriate for that customer to actually buy. And I just suggest you look at every type of selling scenario and come up with 2 or 3 good quality add-on questions that you're comfortable in asking your customers. And what I mean by that is, if we have a man looking for a gift for a woman, what questions might you be comfortable asking him? Well, I'd certainly want to ask, what are the special events you have coming up? What did you have in mind for a Valentine's gift? And at Christmas time especially, I would want to ask, who else is on your holiday gift-giving list this year? And I would etch that one in my memory and ask every customer, who else is on your holiday gift-giving list this year? Because I know if I come into your store looking for jewelry, I'm probably looking for something for my wife. And if you were to say to me, who else is on your holiday gift-giving list, I might tell you my mom, my stepmom, my daughter, my daughter-in-laws, and my granddaughter's now jewelry-giving age, so I probably ought to get her something as well. And you say, we got some really nice gift items starting at $25, $30, $50, wherever you're at, and we'll even gift wrap it for you. What might that guy say? Thank you, Jesus. I really can get it all here. I don't have to go from store to store to store to store. Looking at other types of scenarios, when a customer comes in for a watch battery, or to make a layaway payment, or to buy a gift certificate, or any type of service issue, I believe it is our job as salespeople to try to convert them into jewelry purchases. And again, not pushing aggressive, but if a guy's coming in for a watch battery, and we're late October, early November, I'm going to say, gosh, with the holidays right around the corner, I'm curious, who do you have on your holiday gift-giving list this year? And some customers may thank me for actually introducing it or start asking the questions, and they'll tell me 2 or 3 other people that they need to buy for. So look at every type of selling situation you have and come up with 2 or 3, 4 good quality add-on questions that you can ask early in the sales presentation to find out what the appropriate add-on is going to be, and then we're going to reintroduce it later during the process of closing the sale. And on the next slide, I talk about closing the sale. And the goal of closing the sale is to actually make the sale and to add on. And here's what I find happening out there in the world of sales, is that 20% of the time the salesperson attempts to close, 20% of the time the customer says, I'll take it, as much as 60% of the time there's no attempt made to close the sale. I'm actually having trouble getting people to take my money today. I think it's getting so bad out there in the world of retail, people just aren't asking people to buy anymore. I mean, I was looking for a PS3 for my grandson, went in the store, said to the guy, do you have any PS3s? He said, yep, we just got some in. I said, how much is it? He gave me the price. He says, okay. I said, okay to the price, and he said, all right, well, thanks for coming in today. And I literally had to say to him, can I buy one from you, please? And I just think that once you've shown merchandise, that at the very least, we need to ask them to buy. Again, not pushing aggressive, but if I just say, you want to wear it home today, or let me gift wrap for you, or gosh, that looks gorgeous, why don't we go ahead and take it, then the very worst answer they can give us is no. And I think if you've asked the right questions and followed the NADA theory and demonstrated and created value in the customer's mind, then you've earned the right to ask for the sale. Now let's spend a little bit more time on adding on. And again, add-ons on the next slide equals profit. And I think that it's all pure, plain profit over and above the cost of the merchandise. And that is an add-on. So an add-on, by definition, is any sale that you create over and above what the customer came in for. It is, again, any sale you create over and above what the customer came in for. And managers and owners out there that are listening in, I highly recommend that you start tracking your add-ons as a percentage of total, as a dollar percentage of total, and start tracking where you are on add-ons. And I find that if you start tracking things, then it will just naturally improve. And if we start getting people focused on selling add-ons, then we may be able to have a 5, 10, 15, 20% increase just on add-ons this holiday season. Then I would also recommend that we run games and contests and incentives on actually having people sell add-ons, because I just think that if we sell more, then we should get more. So look at some games and contests and incentives that you can run during this holiday season to get people's minds focused on selling add-ons. And I think we start the process of selling add-ons early in the sales presentation, because I think that's when the customer's mind is most open to buying additional items prior to making the main decision on the main item. In other words, the minute a customer says, okay, I'll take that ring, or okay, I'll take that watch, what are they thinking about? I would guess they're probably thinking about showing it off to their friends, or how gorgeous it is, or should I have spent that much money, or, you know, all those types of considerations, and they're not thinking about selling add-ons. On the bottom of the slide, it says adding on is a customer service. And I absolutely believe it is a customer service, because if you're not selling add-ons, I know they're going to buy additional gifts for other people, and I just want to make sure they buy them from you guys and not from some other store. So it is a customer service to sell add-ons if you do it correctly and you don't do it pushy and aggressive. And if we just do it with skill and technique, then we're going to be successful selling add-ons. Now, on the next slide, I talk about add-ons a little bit. And I say the add-on doesn't have to cost less. As a matter of fact, the add-on can cost a lot more, because people have different budgets for different things. And please don't fall into the trap of pigeonholing yourself to think that the add-on has to go with the main item. Don't think that you have to sell a pendant with some earrings. Don't think you have to sell a necklace with the earrings or the pendant, because people may be buying additional items for different people, which may be an entire different category. So if we ask good quality add-on questions, for example, who else is on your holiday gift-giving list, they may tell us to wear the different things. If I ask, what does she dream of having next, then it may be a coordinating item. So just think about the add-on app doesn't have to cost less. It can cost a lot more. Then I ask the question, what to add on? And the answer actually falls in the needs assessment. Ask the right questions early in the presentation to find out what the appropriate add-on is, and then you're going to be much more successful in selling additional goods. And you'll need this to go with that. That is the no-brainer counter items, I would think. that's selling silver cloths and jewelry cleaner and rechargeable batteries, and those kind of things are just kind of no-brainer counter items that we should be selling. And don't stop, don't stop, don't stop. I know I was with a jeweler yesterday up in Manitoba, and I asked him if it would be okay if somebody came in and wanted to purchase every piece of jewelry they had in the store. And he said, yes, that would be okay with me. My sales staff doesn't have to worry about selling too much. I'm sure that's true with the rest of you out there as well. You don't have to worry about selling too much because jewelry's kind of like Doritos. We can make more. So don't stop, just keep selling till the customer says they're done. And you may be surprised, you may sell 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces to 1 or 2 particular customers during this holiday season. Then I believe that we need to have an add-on checklist. And what I mean by that is that I would checklist, especially in the bridal category, all the people that they need to buy for. And in the jewelry business, I call it the wedding party checklist. And that's get a real nice linen cardstock wedding invitation kind of material and develop a brochure that's a trifold. And on the front of it, it says, for your wedding, did you remember? And then you open it up, and there's a list of the 23 people they need to buy for. Now, according to Brides Magazine, it is 23 people that they need to buy for. Then in the center panel, I would put all the gift items that we carry in this store by price range. And that's why I can't just give this checklist to you because all your stores are so different that you need to checklist all the different gift items that you carry in the $25 to $35 range, $35 to $49 range, $50 to $75, $75 to $100. And then on the next panel, if you get allowed to give discounts, then I would put little coupons that say 10% off on the bride's gifts, 10% off the attendant's gifts, 10% off the groom's gift, 10% off on your wedding bands. And if you can't discount, then 6 months prior to your wedding, come back to our store and do this. 3 months prior to your wedding, come back and do this. 2 months before the wedding, 1 month before the wedding, 1 week before the wedding, 1 day before the wedding, so on and so forth. And you'll be shocked at how often the brides actually pick up this wedding party checklist and they carry it with them from the day they're engaged until the day they're married. And we may not get all of the attendants or all 23 people, but we're going to get a lot of them. So keep in mind that wedding party checklist, or start checklisting all the things they're going to need, and you'll find that people will just buy off these checklists. Then the next slide, I talk about my assumptive add-on close, and this is the close that I think is going to be most effective if you've laid the groundwork early. If you haven't laid the groundwork, then it might be very push and aggressive and overbearing. And what I mean by that, if I say to the customer, who else is on your holiday gift giving list this year? And they say, well, I need to buy something for my daughter-in-law. And then I'm showing him something for his wife. And I've got his head bobbing up and down. I know he's about to buy that gift for his wife. Then I'm going to say, now that we've got your wife taken care of, how about we take a look at some gorgeous gift items for your daughter and your daughter-in-law? What might they say? Well, that would be great. And that's where I mean, if you haven't laid the groundwork early, then you might be perceived as being pushy and aggressive. And I wouldn't use this particular close if I haven't laid the groundwork early. But on the other hand, I think it's your job to lay the groundwork early. So the assumptive add-on close is one that works very, very well. And as a result of an assumptive add-on close on the next slide, they only have one of 3 options, and that is, one, they could decide to buy just the primary item. They could decide to buy the primary item and the add-on item, or they could give an objection to the whole thing. Unfortunately, in an hour-long webinar, we don't have time to talk about handling objections, but hopefully at a future date we'll be able to do that. But on the next slide, there's another add-on technique that I saw in a jewelry store that I just loved, that I loved it so much and it worked so well that I gave it a name and I put it in my training manual. It's called the Don't Let Them Forget and Remind Me to Show You technique. In other words, how it looks is, let's just say we have somebody comes in and she's looking for a gift for her husband. I say, so what brings you in today? And she says, well, I'm looking for a gift for my husband. I say, oh, that's terrific. What's the special occasion? She says, well, he's got a birthday on December 10th. And I say, oh, that's terrific. What have you seen that you'd love to have? She says, I'd like to give him a nice watch. And then we're going through this process, and I throw one of these at her. And I say, oh, by the way, don't let me forget. to show you a necklace I have that will match those earrings you're wearing perfectly. And now what's this young lady thinking about? She's probably thinking about the pendant. And I may or may not sell it to her. But I know for a fact she's going to go home and tell her husband that she saw this pendant that would match her earrings beautifully, and we give her a little hint card to take home with her. She gives it to her husband. We're going to sell additional add-ons. And how I saw this working in a jewelry store was a customer came in for a watch battery. Sales guy says it's going to take me about 5 or 10 minutes to change your watch battery. While I'm back there, I'd love to get your opinion on some new merchandise we just got in that we think is going to be hot this Christmas season. So the guy goes back and he's changing the watch battery. In the meantime, the customer walks over to the new merchandise. He's looking at the merchandise. Salesperson comes back out and says, "This is gorgeous. How much is this stuff? Let me look at some of these things." And he actually sold them 3 of the items. So it's called the Don't Forget and Remind Me to Show You technique. It works really, really well. And the double reverse is another technique that works extremely well in selling additional items. And that's where you assume the main item is sold and you go for selling additional things. And I've read articles that say that in the jewelry industry, 60% of all wedding bands are purchased in a different location than the engagement ring. Think about that. 60% of all wedding bands are purchased in a different location than the engagement ring. I thought, well, gosh, why can't we sell the wedding bands to go with the engagement ring? And maybe we haven't laid that groundwork early, and that's where this double reverse comes into play, in that when a customer walks into a store, and it's more couples now looking for engagement rings, then they say to me, I say, "So what brings you in today?" They say, "Look, we're looking for an engagement ring." I'm going to say, "Terrific, here at ABC Jewelers, not only can we take care of your engagement ring, we can take care of the wedding bands and the bride's gifts, the groom's gifts, and probably most of your attendance gifts as well." So a customer comes in this holiday season. They say, "I'm looking for a gift for my wife." I say, "Terrific, not only can we take care of something special for your wife, but we can also take care of anybody else on your holiday gift-giving list this year as well. And just assume you're going to sell more than one item." And one of my good friends here in Denver that has a jewelry store called me after last Christmas. He said, "Brad, I just got to let you know, on the 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, where we all have these desperate men shopping, I just started saying to these guys, she knows she's going to get something special from you for Christmas. Why don't we surprise her this year with a New Year's Eve gift?" And I'll be darned if the guy didn't sell thousands and thousands of dollars worth of New Year's Eve gifts just because he brought it up. So think about what you guys can do to make this the best holiday season on record. And again, I know unemployment is high, and I know all these things and all the things going on in the media, and I know all the things with the stock market. But if unemployment's at 9%, that means employment's still at 91%. And I know as long as we got other jewelry stores in our mall or in our city or in our location, we have an opportunity for a sales increase. We have an opportunity to make this the best holiday season ever. So if you turn to the next slide, in conclusion, I would just tell you that change is inevitable and growth is optional. And that's kind of my buzz phrase. That's the last chapter of my book, is that change is inevitable and growth is optional. And what I mean by that is this industry is changing very quickly. Customers are changing all the time, and change is inevitable. It's going to happen. And I think in order for us to grow, we need to live up to the changes, and we need to learn some new ways to do things, because we just can't sit back and do things the way we've always done things. I would also highly recommend that all of you work to be successful. Don't work for money. And what I mean by that, where it says time is precious below that, I think we need to work every day of our lives to get a little bit better, not only as human beings, but as salespeople as well. If we can learn something new every day, if we can take it back to the stores and practice it, and one of the things I've been saying to jewelers lately, that very important 20, 30 minutes every morning while you're setting up the store, rather than talking about Grey's Anatomy or who got kicked off Dancing with the Stars or Juicy American Idol, I think we ought to practice some sales techniques so it just becomes second nature to us. Because I really believe in life, nothing ever happens until a sale is made. I think dealings with husbands, wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, sons, daughters, bosses, and coworkers, it's really just sales, isn't it? Working in a jewelry store, it's really just sales. And that last word on the slide is Fineo, which is my mission statement or my operating philosophy, and that stands for failure is not an option. And I will tell you this holiday season that failure is not an option. We need to make it the best holiday season that we possibly can. So that's the end of my part. I guess now would be the time that we open it up for questions.
Thanks,
Have we gotten any questions during the course of the webinar?
Yep, we have our first question is, what is the most important takeaway to being successful this holiday selling season?
Well, I think that most jewelry stores traditionally have been selling about 3 to 5% in add-ons. And I've actually seen stores jump up as high as 25, 30, 35% in add-ons. So I think the secret this year is in focusing on selling add-ons and then speeding up the entire selling process. And then, you know, it's finally important, too, while we have more new customers in our store than any other time of the year, that we start planting seeds for future purchases, start developing friendships, because those customers that are new to your store shopping this holiday season are the ones that are going to be back for Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, graduations, anniversaries, birthdays, and all those other events next year. So I think we need to set ourselves up for next year, this holiday season.
Great, and that leads into the next question is, how do you recommend keeping the holiday selling season motivation going in your staff after the holidays are done?
Well, I love games and contests and incentives and rewards, and I just run games and contests all the time. And I think that at the holiday season, we ought to come up with what our store records are, the biggest day, the biggest week, the biggest month, and then we come up with individual biggest day, biggest week, biggest month, biggest add-on, biggest conversion from a repair to a sale. And we just run the Olympics, and we give bonuses, and we give spiffs and warm fuzzies for somebody breaking a record. And then we continue that on into January, February, and we make it fun, and we start tracking numbers and statistics and run games and contests and incentives and just make it a fun place to work.
Okay, thank you. And now we have one last polling question. If you want to take 30 seconds to answer, are you currently tracking your company's add-ons? Thank you. 7% said yes, and 93% said no.
Oh my goodness. Well, do we have a couple minutes where I can add a little something to that? Sure. Okay, most computer systems will track add-ons as 1.1 items per sale, or 1.2 items per sale, or 1.3 items per sale. And what that means is 1.1 items per sale means that every 10th customer, that person sells an add-on. 1.2 items per sale would be every 5th customer, that person sells an add-on. And it really gives you a bad number as far as tracking your add-ons, because you would think the one that sells 1.2 items per sale is better than the one that sells 1.1 items per sale. And that's not the case, because the 1.1 items per sale just have to sell a $13,000 diamond as an add-on, and the one that sold 1.2 items per sale sold a bottle of jewelry cleaner and a couple of extra Pandora beads. So you need to track that as a dollar percentage of total. In other words, if the person sold $10,000 for the week, $2,500 of that was add-ons, that would be a 25% add-on ratio, and that's coachable, trainable, trackable, and incentivable. So that's why I recommend that you guys start tracking your add-ons to track your effectiveness. I know if we start tracking it, that it will improve.
Thank you. And thank you, Brad, for your time today. All of these tips have been very helpful to everyone listening. This webinar was recorded and will be available on jckonline.com/webinars within 3 business days from now. Also, if you'd like to take a look at JCK Marketplace, the jewelry industry's essential sourcing tool, JCK Marketplace helps retailers easily search, source, and connect with suppliers 24/7, 365 days a year from the convenience of your own desktop. Go to www.jckonline.com/marketplace. And thank you for everyone for joining us today. And if you haven't registered for the second webinar in JCK's Holiday Survival Guide yet, please do so by going to www.jckonline.com/webinars. Thanks, and all the best for a successful holiday selling season.